Hi everybody, so today we're going to be talking about functions in Python, and this is kind of the last of the fundamentals videos where we just have given you a little bit of a flavor and taste of the, the basic programming capabilities in Python. We've covered variables and types, assignment, comparison, calculation, and looping, and today we're going to talk about functions. And then the next time we do a video, we'll be actually starting to write some machine learning programs in Python. We'll do some work with data first. And so this is what we'll be talking about today. We also want to talk about how you run from the command line. So if you didn't watch the setup video on how to set up your computer for Python, specifically using Anaconda, you may want to go back and do that, or go install Anaconda before. You might want to pause the video and go install Anaconda before you watch the rest of the video. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's get out of PowerPoint here. And we won't save that. And let's create a new Python program. So I'm going to use idle again. And I'm going to select File, New File. And let's show you what a let's just start our normal thing with hello, and we will make sure that runs. So we'll say run and yes, and then it's going to ask us where we want to save it. And so I want to save it down in this place, and I'm going to call this functions. And it runs and comes back and just gives us a hello, which is what we would expect. So let's talk about what's happening when you actually launch this program. The Python interpreter starts at the top of the file looking for statements that it can execute, and then it executes them, and it executes them in the order that they appear. Now, for small, simple programs like we've been writing, that works okay, but as you write more and more code, it's very difficult to keep things organized in a way that makes sense when you do that. So it's more common in programming for us to create some structure in our program, and we do that by using functions. These are also known as subroutines or modules, methods. Just depends. Different people call them different things. They all kind of mean the same thing. And basically what it is, let's write a hello function here, and I'm going to go ahead and run it so that you can see how this works. Okay, so this is the function called hello, and functions have the following. They start with the keyword def or def, and then a space, a function name which can't be a Python keyword, parentheses for parameters, which we'll talk a little bit more about here in a moment, a colon, and then the code that you want to be in the function you indent, just like we do with other things like if statements and loops. You call or invoke the function. You'll hear me say call the function in this manner. You simply type the function name followed by any parameters that you pass in, or empty parameters would be parenthesis, parenthesis. So let's see what happens when we run this, and then I'll explain what it's doing. So it still works. So here's what's happening. The Python interpreter starts at the top of the file and is looking for code that it can execute. When it gets to a function, it remembers that it has that code, but it doesn't run that code. And so it doesn't actually invoke that code or run it until that code is called. So when this line executes, the Python interpreter looks for a function that has this name. Your code actually jumps up to the function, runs all the statements in the function, and then returns to the next line. So that's a really important concept to get about how functions work. We're going along, execute statement, execute, execute, execute. Ignore this for now, but remember it. Execute, oh, that's that thing I remember. It jumps up here, executes, and then returns, and then execute additional statements. If I leave this out, if I leave this statement out, watch what happens. So if I don't call the function, it doesn't print anything because there's no code here for it to actually execute. Functions can also return values. So let's write the add numbers function. And let's have it take in 2 parameters. Now parameters are just like variables, and we'll talk about a little bit more about parameters here in just a moment. And let's just print, let's just have this print out. If I could spell it. So we will pass in to the function through the parameters 2 values, a first number and a second number. The function will add them together, convert that to an integer if it needs to be converted. Actually, we shouldn't do that. Let's just pass in numbers and we won't mess around with that right now. And just print the result. Actually, what this needs to be is it needs to convert it to a string so that it can print it. So we'll add it and convert. And if we call add numbers like this, what's going to happen is it will invoke the function or call the function passing. The parameters are passed positionally in this example, which means the first parameter here will be assigned, the first parameter here will be assigned the value that's the first value that's passed in. The second parameter will be assigned the second value that's passed in. And so those 2 numbers will be added together and we'll print the result. So let's go ahead and run that. And you can see it does in fact add the 2 numbers together. Now, in general, there's some coding best practices here in how you want to write functions. First of all, they should be relatively single purpose, so they should do a specific thing. In this case, they add numbers. Now what's happening here, however, is it's adding numbers and also printing the result. That's usually not very good function design. So let's change this a little bit. And we'll do this. The return statement says that the function returns a value. And so if we had a variable, we could say x gets assigned whatever comes back from this function. So the function, whenever the interpreter encounters this line, it still executes it just like it did before, passing the 2 parameters in. But the difference is this return statement. This will cause the function to actually return a value, and that value gets assigned to x now has that value. Basically, we are assigning to x the result of the function. And then we can say print like that. So let's go ahead and run this. Sorry, missed a parenthesis there. Run this. Same thing. So what's happening here? Again, starting from the top, it's just executing statements, and then it gets down to the function. It remembers it, but it doesn't invoke it. This causes the function to be invoked, passing the parameters positionally. So our code jumps up here, and the first number is whatever was passed in. So if I change this to a variable or some other value, that will be what is passed in. And then it executes this, gets a value, and returns that from the function. Okay, so that's how functions work. So this is a better type of function because it's single purpose. It just adds two numbers together and returns the result. And then you could have another function that prints things if you wanted to. So it's up to you as to how you organize your code, but I do recommend that you start relying on functions as much as you can. All right, let's talk a little bit about how you, we've been executing our programs through idle, and we're going to start working towards being able to write programs that we can run from the command line. And so to do that, there is a function that we want to implement called main. So every Python program that you want to run from the command line should have a main function. Now main is a special function that the interpreter knows to call under certain conditions, specifically when the program is being run from the command line or from the operating system shell. And we need this statement in here, and this statement is a little bit tricky. So I'm gonna say exactly what I'm typing here. Underscore, underscore, two underscores, name equals underscore, underscore, main, underscore, underscore. So if name, sorry, name should have two underscores at the end of it. If this special variable called name is equal to main, then do the following, which is call the main function. So if you're writing Python code that you're going to run from the command line, you should be doing this. If you're running it in a tool like Anaconda, you don't necessarily need to do this, but eventually you'll get to the point where you want to be able to run your program from the command line. So I am going to go ahead and save this and show you what happens now. Whoops. Let's just do save. And to start the command line, this is what you need to do. To run Python programs, assuming that you have Anaconda installed, you want to select the Anaconda prompt right here. Now, if you're on a Mac or Linux, I believe that you won't have a prompt this way. It will just automatically have Anaconda installed or in the path of your normal command shell. But what this is doing is making sure that whatever Anaconda knows about as far as the Python environment goes is all set up for you. Now, you can go install Python outside of Anaconda. If you do that, you should be able to execute Python programs from your regular command prompt. But I like having this separated because there's a lot of special setup and functions around Python that you'll need for machine learning, and Anaconda does a great job of bundling all that together. And so I know if I run the Anaconda prompt, it has all of that set up and all of that configuration already for me. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. And then I'm going to switch to where this folder actually is, and it is in the University UOJ folder and Python. And here's the program we've been working on. It's called functions.py. So to run that program from the command prompt, I simply type Python functions.py. And you'll notice it runs, and I get the value 3. So why run from the command line? Because you want to actually write programs that you can use in the operating system. This isn't about just experimenting around with Python inside of idle. Now, you can still run programs inside of idle or inside of Anaconda, but you will get to the point where you want to just be able to run things from the command line. For example, I've got machine learning code that goes out and works with images, and I need to start up several different versions of a program at the same time, and I do all of that through the command line. And so you want to use this, and to do that you need to structure your code this way. So at the bottom just put if underscore underscore name underscore underscore is equal to, with the 2 equal signs, double quote, underscore underscore main underscore underscore double quote, colon, call the main function, and then implement the main function this way. So here's what's happening. We run down to here, and it goes ahead and runs. And let's see what happens if we run it from within. Idle, it still works the same way. Okay? So there's a lot of great things you can do with Python code, but your Python code should start to look more like this and less like a bunch of just individual statements that are all strung together. So you'll see more of this as we write code in how we structure the program. So I hope this was useful to learn just the very basics about Python functions. There's more to learn, as there are with all of the other programming concepts that we've talked about. We will be coming back and talking more about all of those concepts as we start using them. But you've now gone through all the basic fundamentals of Python, and there's more to learn and more to do. And so we are going to be jumping right into data and machine learning with the next video. Thank you for watching. Please like the video and share it. I appreciate you taking the time to watch it. Thanks.